Okay, so over the next week, you will have one assignment, and that is to make at least one SMART goal. And if you're not familiar with SMART goals, don't fret. I'm going to go over it with you here in just a second. So we are an accountability group. Feel Alive 2025 is all about helping you to achieve the goals that you want whilst maintaining balance and finding a way to feel alive in today's world so that we're not bogged down by phones and disconnected from each other and the earth. We really focus within what we do within this group on ensuring that you have found something from a goal perspective that lights you up, that gives you energy, that makes you want to continue forward, but also allows you to feel like you've made progress towards success and achievement of some sort. And so that's why for this first month, we're focusing on one goal. And part of the reason that I'm only focusing on one goal for January is because as we move into February and we start to make the plans for the rest of the year, which is what we're going to be doing in February, having one goal makes it easy to figure out if we're going to have the bandwidth and the space to maintain balance and create more goals. So if you're like me and you have multiple pots going and 17 different projects, that's fine. Don't fret. You'll still be able to do that. But by creating one goal, we then have one focus. So while all of the other things are stirring in the background and we're maintaining those and we're kind of making sure that there's still progress on those are not the priority when it comes down to it. And with having one goal, we can then create action steps that says, I have too much on my plate, and maybe I need to let one or two of these things go, or I can choose to bring one of these other projects up to the forefront. So I don't want you to freak out about the idea of only having one goal for the year. It doesn't mean that that's all you're going to get done. For instance, one of the goals that I have this year is to write a book. But that is not my primary focus or my number one goal. So while that is there and it's in the background, and I hope to make progress on it each week, if things come up that are far more important, whether that's family life, health, dealing with my business, those things can then take the slot of this is the primary goal, this is the important stuff, this is the rich, feel alive things that happen in my life. And that other goal will still be there when the time comes. So, and then once we are through our assessment in mid-February and we have a path and a track and we understand what needs to happen for each next step, then we can assess, do we also want to bring another goal forward? Okay, so as we talk about SMART goals, most of you are probably familiar with SMART goals. I have a ton of really smart people on the hub. And I can't imagine that you would have decided to join this accountability group if you weren't also a smart person. So I'm sure that you've heard of SMART goals. And if you're feeling right now like I've never heard of that, maybe I'm dumb. You're not dumb. It's just, it's an acronym that people have used for, I don't know, as long as I've been goal setting. So probably 13 years now to describe the ideal goal. So we're going to talk about that a little bit and why it's important to the process. And then we're going to get into a little bit of other nuanced things that I want you to just think about and consider as we transition from January to February. Now, we have a whole week at the end of January. And as we move into February, I just want to remind you that while we have this whole other week, some of you may still be playing a little bit catch up, or maybe you're watching this video in the last week of the month, and that is okay. Winter, the middle of January in the Northern Hemisphere is again, it's one of those seasons where we're not supposed to be amped up and doing a lot of things. We really should be taking time to rest and reflect, to save our energy, because come springtime, that's when we plant the seeds. That's when the hard work goes into everything. So if you're not quite there yet, if you feel like you're lagging behind, you're not lagging behind, you're right where you need to be. Okay, let me get a drink quick. Okay, let's move really quickly into SMART goals. So, if you aren't familiar with SMART goals, I'm going to just share the acronym here and what SMART means. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, action-based, realistic, and timely. Now you'll see here I have achievable marked out. Some people use achievable. The A and the R I've heard several times being used with different words. I've chosen action-based because to me, a goal without action steps is really just a vision or a dream. And that's what we're trying to transition away from as we move towards spring. Because come springtime, we want to know what we need to do, how we need to do it, and where we need to do it, and when, right? So we want to make sure that our goals as we move forward are action based, meaning what actions do I need to take in order to do this? And can I take action? So, for instance, if I were going to say, I want to buy a new car, I might say, in order for it to be action based, I want to buy a new car by so and so, and I'm going to do step one, step two, and step three in order to make sure that that happens. And I'll show you what that looks like on the next screen. Um, but specific is really about detailing exactly what you want. So instead of I want to buy a new car, maybe it's I want to buy a blue Toyota RAV4 hybrid, right? So it's very specific and it gives you a very detailed, like focused aspect, right? If you want to lose weight, right? I want to be able to lose 25 pounds. If you want to focus on strength, right? I want to be able to lift XYZ, or I want to be able to do a handstand, or I want to be able to do such and such yoga pose, like whatever that looks like. Just be really specific when you're setting a goal. If it's a business goal and you're wanting to bring in more revenue, how much more revenue do you want to bring in? How many more clients do you want to see? Those are specific goals. And of course, with specificity comes measurability. So we want to make sure that as we're being specific, we can also measure that, right? And that there is a method to be able to measure it. So if you're saying, I want to add 700 new people to my email list, for instance, um, we want to make sure that we're tracking that somehow, either through your email provider or that you are tracking that through, your connections. I'm assuming if that's one of your goals, you probably have an email provider like ConvertKit or MailerLite or MailChimp that you're using. And if that's the case, you'll have a way of tracking. If it's, I want to read X amount of books, how are you tracking that? How is that measurable? And again, being specific, what kinds of books do you want to read? And maybe there is no specificity for that. Maybe it's just any books whatsoever, and a 5-page book would count. Okay. So be as specific as you feel like you need to and measure that accordingly. We've already talked a little bit about action-based. I'm going to go over that more on the next slide, but also being realistic and timely with your goals. So this is one of the reasons why we set that one goal for right now, because we want to make sure that they're realistic. So I've kind of safeguarded that in to this process in January for you. We're focusing on one thing for right now. And if we see that for the next year, you accomplishing this by December 31st of 2025 is super realistic. If some emergency happens or, something comes up that you need to take care of, it's still going to be something that you can achieve. Then we'll look at either adding more goals, shortening the time frame, whatever that looks like. So for right now, you already kind of have the realism and the timeliness part kind of set into this process. Your time by default is December 31st, 2025. But if this is one of those goals where you're like, okay, I'm going to get this, this is my first priority, and I know it's only going to be for quarter one, because it's going to be easier for me to take care of, and then I'm going to move on to other things in quarter two, three, and four, then that's fine. put for the first quarter of 2025 as your time instance. So what this might look like um, is again, a specific goal. So I want to buy a new Toyota 4 RAV4 2025. That's measurable because when I get it, I'll have measured that. Is it achievable and or action based? Well, yes, because I'm going to save this much money and I'm going to apply for a loan, and then these are the things I'm going to do. And again, I'm going to show you that on the next page. And then is it realistic? Well, maybe it is or isn't. You're going to be the one to have to look at your finances and figure out whether or not that's realistic and does the time make sense. So using the car analogy, let's put this into place really quick, okay? So as we use this car analogy, one example would be a new car. A SMART goal might be a gray Toyota RAV4 SEL hybrid on a 72-month loan by 12/31/2021. Well, we're in 2025 now. Obviously, I've been using this presentation for a while now. But this aspect of this 72-month loan automatically makes it action-based, right? Where we can look at this. But there's a way for us to make this even further action-based, right? We know we want this car on this type of loan by the end of the year, right? Whereas what we could do is also build in these test drives, how much money we're going to save, who we need to discuss the terms and conditions and credit acceptance with, and by when, right? So if we want it by the end of the year and we need 6 months to clear up our credit and make sure that things are ready to go, we might want to place that at June 30th or July 31st to ensure that you have access to whatever it is that you need to make sure that you can get that loan, right? Um, Saving $700 a month for a down payment, test driving this car 3 times, right? Those are all things that are action-based SMART goals. So these are all things that you can do, and they're all on a time um, aspect, right? So $700 per month, they're all measurable, right? You can know when you've taken that test drive because you've gone and taken that test drive, and maybe you have a check mark up on your refrigerator or your wall. But these are some of the ways that this would work, right? And so by the end of the year, we should have a new car. Again, this has to come back to you, right? So this is just one example of a way that we can use SMART goals to get what we want in life. But a lot of what we're focusing on within Feel Alive 2025 isn't necessarily about getting a new car. It's really about making us feel fulfilled, making us feel alive, making us more connected to the world around us, more present in the given moment. Um, and so as you work through this, whether it's a new car or it's something else that is really impacting your life, right? Like reducing screen time by 30 minutes a day every day or by 20 minutes or 5 or whatever that might look like. Coming back to the SMART goal aspect of, is it specific? Is it measurable? Do you have actions that you can put into place to make sure that you get it done? Is it relevant or realistic for you? And is it timely? Those are all things that you want to just kind of keep in the back of your mind as we go through the next 2 weeks and start to put that into action. So whatever that one thing is that you put into the chat last week, that you wanted to focus on, whether that was that one path or that value coupled with your vision, what is one thing that you can do today to either start living your life with those values, or that you can start walking down that path that you chose today? And as you look at that, then kind of assessing, how do we pull those through and into SMART goals as we move forward? I want to just kind of go back a couple slides. This is not a presentation I had planned to use for this, but I want to just also focus on how you word your goals. So I want versus I will. If you're sitting on the couch with your spouse and you say, I want to have a cookie, I want a cookie, it doesn't necessarily inspire action, right? You want something, great. We all want something, right? Versus I will have a cookie, or I will get a cookie. That might inspire either your spouse or yourself to get up, right? And then finally, we have this idea of I'm eating my favorite cookie and it tastes like XYZ. And obviously, a cookie is a fairly simple example because you can use any type of cookie in that, and most of us love and want cookies. But I'm using this example because it is a simple example. When you think about eating a cookie, if you close your eyes, you can feel the texture of it, you can taste the flavor of it. Is it warm or is it cold? Is it hard? Is it soft? You can put yourself in a place to experience what that cookie tastes like. And studies show that our brain actually lights up when we remember something or visualize it or think about it almost the same way that it lights up when we're actually experiencing it. And this is a powerful thing if you believe anything about manifestation or anything along those lines. This is really a powerful way for you to actually put yourself in the place of experiencing the things that you want to experience. And when you do that, your brain actually gets wired and makes it more motivating for you to do those things. So, if your vision for 2025 in order to feel alive is going for more hikes in the woods, hikes in the woods, yeah, that's right. If your vision for 2025 is to do that and to get outdoors more and to go for more hikes, can you find some space to close your eyes and to actually feel yourself doing that? And as you write out your SMART goal, instead of saying, I want a new car, I want to go on more hikes, I will do this by this date. And you can see that on this aspect, right? We don't have that listed, but instead of saying goal example number two, a gray Toyota, I will have a gray Toyota RAV4 SLE. Okay. A funny thing about this story is this was actually my goal for 2021. And I did it 6 months early and I changed the color because I found a color that I liked a lot more. And I changed the SLE from an SLE to the upgraded version of XSE on a 60-month loan. So I encourage you, again, write this out and be generous with yourself because it's not always going to come down to you getting those exact things because you may want something different. So again, as we write these out and we look at it, right? Again, if we look at the difference between a goal that will be accomplished and a dream, it's all about the things that we do in the process of the steps that we take. And you can build these steps down to daily action. And that's what we will get to in February is actually taking your big vision, the one that we sat down and journaled about, and then using our supporting commitments, this one being the first one, and setting deadlines and then action steps. And we can get as granular as you feel like you need to, whether that's weekly, daily, even hourly, right? So if you work 8 hours a day, how much time are you dedicating towards this goal? And what actions every hour are you taking to make sure that you hit your goal? So that's it for the goal setting portion. This is a little bit of a longer video, but I wanted to make sure that you had kind of the tools and resources that you needed. Again, many of you probably know some of this information and have used some of this information before. If you haven't and you feel like you still have questions, come to the next group coaching or into the next accountability session with your questions. And if it feels really overwhelming and you really feel like you need to talk this out one-on-one, you can, of course, book a perspective session with me. So, all right. See you guys shortly. I'm sure that we will be having our call in the next day or so.